So, good morning, everyone. Welcome to our continuing sessions of Unconscious Bias series with collaboration between ICF and ACMP Texas. Uh, Today's speaker is going to be Ms. Kelly Johnson. And let me share my screen real quick before I forget.
Good morning, all.
Good morning.
All right. So, uh, as I've mentioned, welcome to this series of uncovering unconscious bias between ICF and ACMP Texas. The session today will be recorded for everybody's uh, viewing pleasure afterwards. If you cannot stay, or for anybody who didn't come, a couple housekeeping things. Please make sure that you keep your microphones off and on time and muted. Uh, If you need to ask good questions, either raise your hand or pose the question inside the chat box. There'll be a couple of us that'll be monitoring the chat area for questions. All right. Other than that, I'm going to turn it over to Miss Michelle Lopez or Dr. Lopez so she can go over the agenda of today's session.
Great. Thank you so much, Manny. We're so happy to see everyone here. And we just wanted to run through a few items so you can see on your screen. Today, we are continuing with uncovering the unconscious bias, and you can see our agenda. We are just going to discuss a little bit to share again quickly about our overview of our partnership with ACMP and ICF and that synergy that we've created the last few months. We'll talk about our objectives, and then I'll introduce our wonderful speaker for today, and we'll have our program and leave a few minutes at the end for questions and answers. So just to share who our team is, just wanted to pop that slide up very quickly.
Oh, I'm sorry.
There you go.
One too many.
That's okay. Just to give you another indication, if you haven't joined us before for one of our sessions, this is the team of individuals from both ACMP and the Association for Change Management Professionals and the International Coaching Federation, ICF, who have partnered together to bring you this series for unconscious bias. Here, thank you. We appreciate all of their time and effort. And then as we move forward, our next piece is just sharing a little bit about our partnership with ACMP and ICF. ACMP, organizational change, is their main focus. For us, people change is the main focus through ICF as coaches. And we really looked at this being a very good synergistic partnership in order to come together and create some programming for both professionals. We see that great overlap that can really be beneficial across the board. With this overview, we also have some objectives for the program. And get that little slide next up here, Manny.
Oh, still on some. So I'm sorry.
That's okay. It's all right. I think there's just a bit of a lag for a second there. So we can keep moving forward if you want to the next one. And it's just a little link there of the synergy. There we go. So just so that you see how we put this together, we really see the synergy of both areas being members of the thought leadership and really moving forward with the different areas. For our objectives right now, just to share with you, we really see the synergy between coaching and change management that can help address bias in the workplace for you all and for all of us as we work together. Really exploring that unconscious bias and how our experienced coaches and our change practitioners really use those tools, and they are set to address bias. And then we like to do some breakouts, and that's what these have been, opportunities to provide breakouts with our peers on how to address the bias in the workplace. So we're moving forward. And we'll go to the next one, Manny. There we go. So just a quick overview. Here are all of the programs we have had from August, September, and October. And we're happy to culminate what we've been doing this fall with today's session with Kelly Johnson. She is our speaker, and we'll be talking about how to be the change after we've had several of these pieces. And then the very last item that we'd like to make sure we invite you to is our last event, December 17th. We want to celebrate all of the change that we've discussed over this fall. So we invite you to ensure that you will be with us on December 17th to celebrate that. And you can again register through ACMP Texas and ICF Greater Austin, San Antonio chapters. And we would love to maintain that momentum of the change that we've been talking about this fall. So thank you. Okay, I think that's the last slide for us. All right, thank you, Manny. So at this time, I want to go ahead and introduce our speaker for today so that you have a little bit of information about who she is. Kelly Johnson is the founder and CEO of KJE Consulting and Coaching. It's a Dallas-based firm with national and global reach. For nearly 5 years, she and her team have provided strategic diversity, inclusion, leadership coaching, and talent management solutions to clients across a number of industry sectors. Kelly is a collaborative and intuitive professional. She's known for strategic thought, leadership, driving results, and developing next-level practices to align solutions with business priorities across the broad-based industries and sectors. Previously, as the head of diversity and emerging talent at JCPenney, Kelly was instrumental in linking business innovation and inclusion and diversity strategy. She is a Hogan certified executive coach and a graduate of Texas Women's University, my alma mater too, Kelly, and has held strategic advisory roles with several nonprofit and public organizations. It is my pleasure to present Kelly Johnson as our facilitator for today.
Thank you so much, Michelle, and the entire team for inviting me to be a part of this important series and discussion. And just kudos to the leadership of these two organizations to dedicate an entire series to the topic of unconscious bias. And it's just so vital right now. It's always vital, but in particular with our current climate and challenges that we have. And so it's my pleasure today to talk about how we can all be the change and play an active role in making a positive difference. Just a little bit more about what we do and how we do it. Our team focuses heavily on strategy development and thought leadership around the areas of diversity, equity, and inclusion. We also have a team of several coaches that engage in traditional leadership development, coaching partnerships, but we also have the capacity and the capability to engage in coaching engagements around diversity and inclusion, which we're really proud to do. And then we offer quite a bit of training, learning, and education around these topics. And you'll be seeing in a moment an example of one of our learning programs. Here's a quick snapshot of some of the organizations we've had a privilege to be a part of their DEI journey. You can see here that there's some organizations that are very mature in their diversity, equity, and inclusion journey. And we've also had the privilege of working with some who are just starting out. One of the things that we try to pride ourselves on is not just talking the talk, but we really strive to walk the walk of diversity, equity, and inclusion. And while our team has some levels of visible diversity, we're also proud of the diversity of backgrounds and experiences that are represented on our team. Some come out of youth leadership, some have come out of corporate executive education, others corporate marketing experience. And so we definitely view that as a strength to our team and the diversity of backgrounds and experiences that we all have. So today what you're going to experience is a preview, a little bit of a snapshot or a highlight of our unconscious bias training that we provide to many of our client organizations. And it's called Beliefs, Blind Spots, and Bias. In this program, we've always really strive to foster an environment of psychological safety. And so here are some guides for our discussion today. And some of them probably look pretty familiar to you, but I would love to just have us do a quick thumbs up, or feel free to use the wave of the hand feature within the Zoom platform if that's your preference, or you can also use the chat. But I invite all of us to really lean into the conversation today, but to do so in a way that is respectful, safe for all of us, and knowing that we're all on this journey together to move forward in a positive direction. Is this something that we can all agree to? Would love to see. Yes, I see thumbs up. Thank you. Just scrolling through. Nice to see all the different ways that we are communicating through technology. Fantastic. Thank you so much. All right. So, this, as I mentioned, is a part of a much broader learning and training program that really helps to set the foundation around unconscious bias and grow the knowledge around this topic. For our conversation today, where we're going to talk about how we can all be the change, we're going to focus on a little snippet where we build capability, we build a capacity, and teach strategies on how we can all be the change through this learning program. So this might be a little bit of stretch for our technology skills. So I want to give a quick overview of the Zoom annotation feature in case you may not be familiar with it, but we will use it a couple of times in the session today. So the easiest way to find it is to go to View Options right around the Zoom menu bar, likely at the top of your screen. So click on View Options, scroll down on that menu, and you should be able to see a feature or an option to click Annotate. When you do that, you're going to have a new menu bar. It's just like a little thin black bar with the options of mouse, text, draw, stamp. Let me just do a quick scan. If you want, as a quick test, let's practice our new skill or maybe emerging skill. You can stamp if you want to right now, just to let me know that you have it. Thank you, Aurora. She's got a brilliant shape there. Fantastic. Lots of nice drawing and doodling. Doesn't it feel good to go back to kindergarten for a moment? Good job, everyone. I think it looks like you all have the hang of it. Great job. So we're going to use that a couple of times, and you'll know when it's time to annotate. I'm going to go ahead and clear the screen. Fantastic. You all caught on so well. I'm so proud of you. I had to learn. Yes. So who said they're rocking it? You sure are. I love it. Fantastic. Also, in the spirit of psychological safety, I will say that briefly your name does flash across the screen, but it does not stay up there. So your comments are not as easily attributable to you. So just want to let you know that there is that level of psychological safety even using this feature. All right, so here we go. We cleared all the drawings. Let's dive into our conversation. And I want to start with a few words that you're going to hear me use several times throughout our program. So I want to make sure we have just a common understanding, a common vocabulary around these three primary principles that are so central to this learning experience. We all have beliefs, and that's great. This course, this program is not about changing beliefs. It's not about associating any particular value towards or against anyone's belief. So I just want to set that stage really clearly. But a belief is a thought or an opinion and something that we hold to be true. We'll talk later about how that plays a part in unconscious bias in a moment. Blind spots. Blind spots are just areas, and for the fellow coaches, you know exactly what I'm talking about here. Oftentimes, there are parts of our life, parts of our leadership behavior, part of how we show up every day that we simply just do not have as great a level of awareness about, and that's a blind spot. And bias is something that you all have been exploring for several months now, so you probably are pretty familiar with the term. But I would like to highlight that bias just is, in and of itself, bias is neutral, or it can be neutral. bias can create an advantage for some, and it can create a disadvantage for others. But bias in and of itself, not every bias is negative. There's, sometimes we have a bias for action, or we have a bias for certain personality styles. It's okay for us to have a bias towards something. The idea is really to work towards minimizing the negative impact that sometimes our biases can create. Okay, let me clear the screen one more time. I see us, we're all continuing to draw a little bit. That's great. All right, here we go. So we have the framework for our conversation and some of the key terms that we're going to use. Ultimately, at the end of the day, bias plays a significant role in some of the inequalities and inequities that we see in society and in our workplaces. And that's why this conversation is so important. I want to present to you a framework for understanding the role and the connection of our beliefs, our blind spots, and our bias. And this is a core model that we teach and share with other organizations. And it really starts with our life experiences. Oftentimes, many people think of bias starting in the brain, and that is definitely a central part of bias. But oftentimes we neglect, or we don't see the role of the life experiences that we have and how they lead to preferences, those preferences leading to blind spots, and the blind spots ultimately leading to bias and discrimination. Let me show you how. We're going to use the story of Taylor. Taylor had very little personal experience growing up with people from different cultures and races and backgrounds. As a result, Taylor preferred, he or she or they developed a preference to really stick to their own kind, and really formed a belief that it's just best to stay with people who are a lot like me. That preference created a blind spot for Taylor. And so as a result, Taylor became blind to being able to see the benefits and the unique contributions of people from all different backgrounds. From there, Taylor began to display bias towards people from different cultures and backgrounds and didn't even realize it, which ultimately led to some unfair treatment and disadvantages for people within the organization who were from a different culture or background. So we illustrate this path of what leads to bias and discrimination. But ultimately, today we're here to talk about the strategies. We have to have a game plan for how we can mitigate the biases that we all have. All right. So we're going to dive into the first of a set of 5 different strategies that we can all use to be the change. And I introduced to you this model because within this model, there is a strategy embedded in it. So we first have to understand the role of each of these qualities, our beliefs, our preferences, our blind spots. We have to understand how that all leads to bias. And once we understand that, we can use strategies, levers to create positive change. And I'm now going to walk you through those 5 strategies. Give me just one quick second. All right, having a little bit of allergies today. So the first strategy that we can all use to be the change is we have to broaden our experiences to expand our understanding. This is so critical because our experiences lead to our preferences. And I'm going to use a framework for how we can apply these strategies. And the framework is about building awareness, taking action, and then realizing the advantage. So, in order to broaden our experiences, we first have to identify elements of diversity that we're just not as familiar with. The action we want to take is to engage intentionally in a variety of experiences to help expand our understanding. The advantage we gain from that is that we're able to embrace diversity beyond just accepting it. So sometimes we acknowledge and we accept that diversity is a reality, but our goal, if we really want to be the change, we have to move beyond acceptance. I'm going to show you, and we're going to do an activity now where you'll get to use the Zoom annotation tools. I want to share with you an activity on how you can grow your awareness to identify elements of diversity where you might be a little less familiar with. All right, so we're getting ready to use Zoom annotation tools. This is the diversity pyramid, and here you can see 5 aspects, 5 elements of diversity that really make all of us who we are. Some are more privately held, some are less visible, some are more visible. Well, I want you to use the stamp tool within Zoom annotation, and I want you to just mark on the screen what are the elements of diversity that provide you with your strongest sense of self. What aspects, what traits of diversity really help define who you are? Go ahead and use the stamp tool to mark that now. Excellent. We're seeing lots of check marks and stars. Good job, everyone. Keep them coming. Okay. So, as you continue to do that, you're identifying the elements of diversity that help define who you are. How can we use this to grow awareness? While it might be a little hard to identify with everyone else's markers or stamps on the screen, I want you to think about the elements of diversity that you personally marked. Now, I want you to think about the elements of diversity you did not mark. Those will be the areas of diversity where you could have an opportunity to grow your level of understanding, grow your level of awareness. So we're taking a look at who we are, which is great, and we are absolutely made up of many aspects and many qualities that are all extremely important. But when we do so, when we become more aware of ourselves, we can also become more aware of areas of difference and uniqueness that we may be less familiar with. So just make a mental note and write down what were some of the elements of diversity that you did not indicate, that you did not mark. Take a quick second and write that down. Fantastic. I'm going to clear the screen. And hopefully, you have each indicated or recognized some elements of diversity that are an opportunity for you to broaden your experiences. Those elements of diversity that you did not mark are likely areas for potential growth and the opportunity to broaden your experiences to grow your awareness and understanding. Now, let's move on to the next step. The second step is to reconsider our preferences to lessen their influence and their impact on others. Why? Because our preferences lead to beliefs. So, following our 3-step framework of awareness, action, and advantage, the first step is to become aware by identifying how our preferences influences all the decisions we make every day. I mean, from our coffee to what we eat for dinner to who we hire. Our preferences drive so many, if not all, of our decisions every single day. So it's important to understand what makes up our preferences. Now, what action can we take? Expanding our consideration of what is good, what we value, what we prefer, what we see as valuable or beneficial. Sometimes within our quick reactions or our quick assessments, we're going to absolutely default to what we prefer, human nature. If we take a moment to really think about or consider that while I may prefer a certain style, I may prefer a certain flavor of food, I have to remain open to seeing the value and benefit of other things that I may not naturally or instinctually prefer. The advantage that we can gain from here is we can grow our ability to offer civility and respect with everyone, regardless of areas of difference. Now, I want to ask you to do a quick exercise. You're going to use the chat feature for this next exercise because I want to highlight how we make our preferences or how we determine what is a preference. All right. So get ready to use the chat feature. And I'll be monitoring the questions in just a moment. So I'm going to share with you in just a few seconds a series of 3 pictures. For each of the pictures or for each of the slides, I want you to use the chat feature to indicate which of the pictures you view as most pleasing and positive. Pleasing and positive. You're going to have 3 options for every single slide. Are we ready? Okay, here we go. Which of these pictures is most pleasing and positive? A, B, or C? Right, we've got some coming in. Lots of different varieties and preferences. Okay, great. Next, which of the following is most pleasing and positive? And for some of us who are on the central time zone, it might be lunchtime, so this might inspire lots of preferences right now. Good, we're seeing lots of. I'm always so impressed when people select A, the broccoli. You're so healthy. I love it. Fantastic. Last one. Which of these is most pleasing and positive? Beach, snowy mountain, or lake? All of the above. A with an exclamation point. Yeah, very good. So, good job, everyone. Let me ask you a question. How did you make your choices? Feel free to use the chat. How did you make those choices? Mood. Kim says the mood. Carrie says experience. Jan says instinct. Tony says familiarity. We're seeing some gut emotions, kind of gut reactions coming through the chat. CJ says, what gives me joy or peace? Naples says experience. Thank you. Okay. So what do you think? Some of you also answered the next question which is why do you think we have these preferences? How do we get to a place where we prefer chocolate chip cookies over broccoli or vice versa? Yeah, Michelle says experience. Absolutely. What we crave. Very good. Okay. So I have one more set of pictures that I want you to do the same exercise with. You ready? Which of the following is the most pleasing and positive? We have a graffiti artist, rap artist, tattoo artist. Several A's coming through. Have a C and a B. Good. Now, let me ask you, were these set of images more difficult to answer? I see Jim nodding his head. A couple of you said no, a few yeses. So, would anyone like to maybe raise your hand and share why it was a little bit harder? What made this set of images a little bit harder to respond to identify what was pleasing and positive? I'm just scrolling through the thumbnails to see if I have a raised hand. Did I miss one?
It looks like Jan Lipsky has her hand
Okay.
up. Ellie.
Thank you. Jan, if you'd like to unmute your line, we'd love to hear your voice.
Good afternoon, everybody. I felt like they were difficult because none of them represent the type of art that I particularly like.
Mhm.
And in fact, I have a real bias, I know, to people who are completely tattooed and so forth. And it's not the person, but I just feel bad about all that ink. So it's a gut reaction, I guess.
Yeah. Thank you, Jan. Appreciate it. Frank, it looks like you have a raised hand.
I think people have a problem with these images because typically they're portrayed in a negative light. So it's kind of a learned bias. graffiti, some rap artists, tattoos on the body. So I think, in kind of in keeping with what Jan said, there's in kind of a taught or learned bias that's
Yeah.
not necessarily instinctual, but it's
Hmm.
something that you learn over time.
Yeah. Thank you, Frank. And maybe last person, we'll hear from Carrie. I think you have a hand raised. Carrie Williams.
Hi, yes,
Hi.
hi Kelly. And it's Karee, just for the record. That's
Carrie,
all.
thank you.
So
Thank
I
you.
had a especially hard time because I was instantly drawn to the tattoo artist, but I felt like I should choose the rap artist.
Hmm. Interesting.
So, and I think it's the photo quality of the tattoo artist, the perfectly blurred background, but was like, ooh, I love hip hop though. But then I'm like, I don't know who this person is. So
Right.
I was torn to answer.
Yeah. Thank you. Thank you for that. And thank you for and knowing the correct pronunciation of your name. This is interesting. So just from a personal perspective, I have a sister who has quite a bit of body art. And I think she's the only person in our family that does have body art. And so it was a learning experience for our family because it was new. And with media and other images and just the lack of personal experience with having body art, it was an area of diversity that we had to learn to embrace and understand because for her, her body art told stories. And it was a way of self expression. And so, thank you for everyone who weighed in. So, I like what Teresa Bittner is saying. It required thinking versus using instinct and gut. Yeah, definitely a difference. But let me ask you, do we now see how our preferences influence our decisions? Notice how quickly we were able to make decisions with the first set of images and how it took us a little bit longer with the last set of images. What awareness are you developing as you think about preferences and how they play a role in your decision making? I'd love to see what you have to say about that within the chat. I hear typing in the background. And I think Belinda had a hand raised earlier. If you have a moment, Belinda, to unmute your line, we would love to hear your voice. Jan says, learning to stay open-minded and not judge. Thank you for that. CJ says, decisions about people are more fraught. Right, because we know that there's an impact. Yeah. Belinda, are you ready?
I'm ready.
Great.
So for me, when I looked at this, it's like, what criteria am I going to use to judge this with? And I finally decided, okay, what's aesthetically most pleasing to me?
Mm.
And it goes back to what Teresa said about that I had, it wasn't instinctual. I had to think about it.
Yeah. Yeah. Thank you for that, Belinda. I really appreciate what you're bringing up in terms of a slightly different experience. So the new experience or the new types of images required a different way of thinking and processing the information. So our brains needed just a little bit more time to process. And I don't know if you all noticed in the chat, the speed of response for the first set of images was really fast. You all were flying. But then with this last set of images, there was a little slight delay. And it's all attributable to our brains needing just a little bit more time to process the information that it was presented. Great job, everyone. Let's talk about the third strategy. Okay, so again, this is all about how we can be the change, how we can make a positive difference. The third strategy is to expand our beliefs to strengthen relationships. Why? Because our beliefs can lead to blind spots. So Using our 3-step framework of awareness, action, and advantage, the first step is we have to be aware. What are our beliefs? What are our core values that really shape our life experiences and our decisions? Again, we're not here to change beliefs, but we do want to make sure that we understand how our beliefs influence our lifestyle, our actions, and how we interact with other people. And that really lends itself to that next step of analyzing our beliefs to determine, do my beliefs and my values, do they foster and nurture diverse relationships, or do they not? How open are my values and my beliefs in terms of how I interact with other people? The opportunity and the advantage here that we can gain when we analyze our beliefs is that we can form ally relationships. So we don't necessarily have to be a part of a particular community or ascribe to a particular perspective of diversity, but we can be an ally and we can play an active role in supporting others and supporting the ability for others to be their authentic selves. So let me just do a quick check-in on the chat and see if there's any questions that you have before we do a quick exercise about our beliefs. We doing good over here? All right. I'll be looking at the chat periodically and checking in with our co-host to make sure we don't have any questions coming in. Now, I want you to do some self-reflection. So this is an opportunity to use maybe a device, your laptop or a tablet or a sheet of paper. We're going to do a quick exercise. I think I hear someone wanting to ask a question.
There was a question, Kelly, really quickly that came in from Jim. Just a question on how to create opportunities for ally relationships.
Okay, great. So, one of the ways to create ally relationships is to take a look at communities, groups, or maybe individuals if you're a part of an organization that maybe their voice is not being heard. You know, being an ally can happen on a small scale and even larger scale. Small scale might be if you're in a meeting and you notice that there's an individual in the meeting whose voice is not being heard. Perhaps they shared an idea and people dismissed it and moved on. You have an opportunity to be an ally in that moment and say, you know, I think so and so had a comment and I think we should consider it a little bit more fully. That in that moment you're being an ally. You can also be an ally on a larger scale, looking at different communities and groups that typically are underserved, that are marginalized. How can you help advocate on their behalf and help tell their story? You know, oftentimes, you know, communities that are underrepresented, underserved, those that have been marginalized or discounted, allies play a particular role because sometimes when people who are not a part of that particular group or community, when they act and speak on behalf of others, you can connect with others in a different way. And so your role as an ally can be extremely powerful. Thank you for that question. Yes, being a catalyst for conversations. Absolutely. Great question. All right, I want us to think about our core beliefs and our core values. And I want you to be prepared to write this down. So make a list of your most deeply held beliefs and values. What guides you? If you could just make a note and take a moment of reflection and think about what guides me in everything that I try to do. Thank you for those of you who are putting your core beliefs and values in your in the chat. It's wonderful to see. We're seeing faith, truth, community, family, honesty, peace, beauty, faith, family, and integrity. Belinda, respect, connection, family. Jim, broadening perspectives, caring, compassion, empathy, love, kindness. Such powerful, powerful words. and beliefs and values. Thank you all so much for your transparency and courage and sharing. I want to now ask you a question. Have we ever considered how our beliefs could potentially cause harm to others? And I know that this is a challenging statement or question to consider because, for the most part, we believe our beliefs and values to be positive, and they are positive. But I want us to think about how our beliefs shape our decisions and actions. Could we unintentionally, through our values, cause harm to others? I'll give you an example of one for me, and that is authenticity is really important to me. And so, as a result, I tend to have a hard time with people who seem less than authentic. Let's just say it that way. I would probably call them fake. And I'm just being fully transparent. But because authenticity is a core belief for me, I find myself at times wondering, okay, is this person being authentic or are they being less than authentic? And so what happens is when I'm not sure if someone is being authentic, it's difficult for me to trust. And so that influences my interactions with that person or with those individuals. And so while authenticity it's a great belief, it's a great view, when it is left unmanaged or left um, without some level of analysis and awareness of how, when I interact with people who maybe don't share my same belief and value, I could treat them differently. So I want to just do a check-in to see how this is resonating with you. I think Naomi says, yes, I have experienced this. Michelle says, I see the intent of sharing our values can have an unintended impact based on the way we exhibit those values. Yes. Manny talks about the path to trust. Aurora, yes, I see that not everyone views risk as faith. They prefer to stay in the box. Naomi, I'm curious if you would expand on your comment, if there's anything that you could share with us a little bit more.
Yes. I've experienced this on more than one occasion. For one, there are people in my life that I see more in them than what they bring to the table or than what they are willing to bring to the table. And so for me, one of my values is, always growing and always, that's a big value of mine. People having you a sense to always grow. And when I express that, I've expressed that to people, and it has caused a problem because they like to be right where they are.
Yeah.
And so I had to come to grips with that. That's the way I see you. I see your value and I see your potential. But if you don't want to reach it, I can't knock you for that. But if you ever decide, then I'm here for you. Mm-hmm. So that was huge. That was really, really huge for me because I really believe in, striving to be a better person.
Right. Thank you so much, Naomi. I appreciate your courage in sharing, and I can definitely relate to that. We can want something for others, or we can have a desire for others, or how many of us struggle with people who just are not kind? Think about this. Think about our interactions with people who just are not kind. And I think I saw in the chat someone who said they struggle with people who lack empathy, right? And so when we think about our values of empathy or kindness, I want us to think about this topic and our strategies of how we can be the change, even when we are interacting with personalities or individuals who have different values than us. So think about it within that context as well. Great job, everyone. You're doing fantastic. Love all the sharing. We're now to our fourth strategy. And the fourth strategy is to identify the blind spots that we all have so that we can grow in our awareness. And this is critical because once we have, or when we have blind spots, and we all do, that's where bias can really begin to creep in. So the first step is to identify how we perceive how others perceive our commitment to diversity and inclusion. So, this is an opportunity to really have a mirror in front of ourselves and to step out of what we view as perhaps our own commitment to diversity and inclusion and to get input from others who can give us more objective feedback. And so, how do we do that? It's going to take courageous conversations. We have to engage with people who reflect diversity and ask for their feedback about how am I showing up? This is important to me, but I don't know how I might be perceived in this moment or in these conversations. And I really want to challenge us to engage people beyond those that we have a close relationship with. This can be a powerful way to extend and grow relationships with people that we may not be as close with and we may not have as much in common with. The advantage to doing this is that we can begin to foster inclusion for all. We can become more proactive in demonstrating inclusivity because we become more aware of how we're being perceived and how we're showing up. This is also a great way to gain more awareness about potential microaggressions that we might be displaying and we're not aware of. All right, we're going to have a little bit of an activity to go along with this. So get ready to take some notes. I want you to make a list of people that you can reach out to have these kinds of conversations. Write down a few names, go to the first names that come to mind, try not to filter, make a list. Who can I reach out to have courageous conversations and gain feedback about how I'm showing up? All right. So I'm not going to ask you to reveal your names, but I'm just going to do a quick check-in to see, was it difficult to think of names, or were you able to come up with more names than you thought? Let's get a little bit of feedback and gauge how everyone's doing with this particular exercise. Was coming up with this list difficult? Okay, Manny kicks us off, and CJ. Okay, looks like a few said it took a few seconds, then the list came to mind. Good. Naomi, thank you. Love your courage here. Not as difficult to come up with the names, but could be a little difficult and challenging to actually have that conversation. Yes. Really appreciate that. So let's talk about that. What might you need in order to feel more comfortable to have these courageous conversations? What skills can we tap into to help us have these conversations? CJ says structure, tools. Manny says patience. Yeah. Good. The list of agreements you presented at the beginning. Thank you, Michelle. Active listening, conversation prompts, empathy. Yes, Aurora, love it. Fantastic. Intent to connect. Thank you, Kathleen. And if you wouldn't mind, Kathleen, I'd love for you to unmute your line and say a little bit more about that. Intent to connect. Mary Jo, curiosity. Kathleen, are you ready?
Yeah, I'm in the middle of kitchen construction, so there might be noise. That's why I'm on mute. Intent to connect. To me, it's how I show up, how I go into a relationship. It's not hopefully I can do it or it might work or I'm not sure. But if I have an intent drives everything to me. So it's really that will.
Yeah. Thank you. Thank you for that, Kathleen. You have the tools inside of you. And one of the best tools that we can all tap into is empathy and putting ourselves in the other person's shoes. Because actually, it might be hard for the other person to be honest and transparent with us. So it's probably going to be a challenging conversations for all parties involved. And I think if we approach those courageous conversations in that way, it will really help shape and influence our delivery and how we engage with that person. I also think it's really important to really state those intentions on the front end of the conversation. Be vulnerable. I saw that in the chat with for some of you. So vulnerability, empathy, using those emotional intelligence skills that we all have. You have what you need inside of you. And whatever level of conversation you're able to have, you can only grow and get better. So I really want to encourage each of us to make a commitment. What's a conversation I can have with at least one person by the end of this month, by the end of this year? Set some goals. Let's take a moment and make a list or make a note of a commitment that we can make to have a courageous conversation. Yeah. Good. Love that, Michelle. Michelle says, um, as change management and coaching professionals, we do have these tools. We just need to remind ourselves that we do. Absolutely. We never fully know what we're capable of until we challenge ourselves. And isn't that what we encourage our clients to do? So this is definitely an opportunity for us to, practice our own coaching skills and change skills. So great, love that. Michelle says, I'm sharing that I'm making a commitment to ask this of my university students at the end of the semester. Thank you. I love that. That's great. Aurora says, we empower our clients. Yes. So we have to empower ourselves too. Great job, everyone. Okay, we're going to go into a breakout discussion in just a few moments, but I want to give you this fifth strategy. And the fifth strategy is to manage our biases by regulating our words and actions. Why? Because biases could lead to discrimination, even if we hold or ascribe to a value of not trying to discriminate against people. We have to become more aware by identifying our microaggressions and other words and behaviors that could discount or create disadvantages for others. We're back into the emotional intelligence competencies and capabilities. We have to tap into those skills to counteract the disparate impact that bias can create. And ultimately, we gain the advantage when we create accountability. And when we invite others to join us in this journey to keep ourselves firmly on the path of making a positive difference. So we're going to go into a breakout group discussion in just a few moments. But before we do that, let me just do a quick check-in to see if there's any questions that are coming up for you. We may have someone in the waiting room, by the way, for our hosts.
There's nobody there.
Okay, gotcha. Great. Can you expand on establishing accountability? Thank you for the question, Frank. So we're going to talk about that in just a few moments, but one of the ways is to invite others into our journey, and that we do that by first sharing, hey, this is what I'm working on. I really want to grow in this area. And we can invite others to give us feedback, especially those who see us on a regular basis, really creating that accountability partner to check in with us, giving someone permission to ask us, hey, how are you doing on that, Frank? How are you doing on that, Kelly? So great. Thanks for that question. All right. So in a few moments, we're going to break out into small groups of about 3 to 4 people. I'll leave it to the team to determine, what's an easy math number to divide all the participants. But in your breakout discussion, here's what I want you to think about. And Manny, if we could maybe just give everyone a minute or two before we open the breakout rooms.
Sure.
I want you to think about the question that you see on the screen. when you look at all of the 5 strategies that we've covered today, I want you to think about what's the one thing you're going to do differently to foster inclusion and make a positive difference. Think about that for just a moment. And when we go into the breakout group discussions, I want you to share that. Share that with your colleagues and use this as an opportunity to network. Do a brief introduction and then share your commitment that you're intending to make. So everyone take just a few seconds to think about what's really rising to the surface for you from this conversation today.
That's great. Kelly, how long would you like them to be in the breakout room?
Great, thank you. Good question. Let's do 10 minutes within
10
the
minutes?
breakout session. Yes.
Okay.
All right. And I think we're all ready. So we'll see you back in
Yes.
10 minutes.
All right, I'm going to break everybody out into breakout rooms right now. It'll last for 10 minutes. At the end of the 10 minutes, it'll automatically bring you back to the main room. There will be a countdown timer on the upper left-hand corner in the breakout room, and there will be a label there as well. So here we go.
Welcome back. We're going to give others a few more minutes to come back.
Oh,
Yeah, they should be back within the next 30 seconds.
I'll just take this moment, Kelly, to just compliment you. Such a good facilitator.
Oh, thank you, Kathleen. I appreciate it. Thank you.
Here we go.
All right, we've got more coming back. We're going to give others a few more minutes to join. For those of you who are already back, I think for the sake of time, what I'm going to ask you to do is to start the next activity. So we're going to create a virtual flip chart. And I would like for you all to share, to annotate again. So this time type, using the Zoom annotation tools. Go ahead and share, what is your commitment? What is the one thing you're going to do to be the change? If you could go ahead and annotate that on the screen, that would be lovely. For those of you who are just joining, welcome back. We are creating a virtual flip chart and we are sharing our commitments. We are sharing the one thing we're going to do to be the change. If you could annotate that on your screen, that would be great. Thank you for kicking us off. You can use the text feature to type. Wonderful. Great stuff coming in. Seek shared understanding. Be an ally. Making sure to invite diverse viewpoints into conversations. Powerful. Remain open to learning more about my own bias. Think about how this will be included in my 2021 goals for coaching with clients. I love it. I love it. Listen. We got someone who's adding listen. Okay, good job, everyone. Thank you. Look at this powerful flip chart, virtual flip chart. Look at all these fantastic commitments. You can even, for those of you who've already typed your commitment, you can use the stamp feature and highlight some of your colleagues' ideas that you like. How about that? Having to move some of them around. Good. Make a point to introduce myself and chat with people I don't know at meetings, social events when we can get out again. Yeah. Good job, everyone. We'll just take maybe 60 more seconds. Be an ally. Great job, everyone. So something that'll be fun, you can actually save this screen. So within your Zoom annotation menu bar, the far right option says save with like a little arrow inside of a box. If you click on save, you will have a PNG file of this amazing wall of personal commitments of all the different things that we are committing to do to be the change. So save that. I know I'm saving it because I am super proud of everyone and all of your commitments. And I do have to clear the screen now, so 10 seconds for you to share your screen, or save it, I should say. So 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Clearing the screen now. Great job, everybody. So here's my final question for you. And this goes back to the accountability piece that was asked earlier. Now that you've made the commitments and we've all seen the commitments, you've had conversations about them in your small breakout group discussions, my last encouragement of accountability is, who will you tell? You've shared it with your colleagues here and you've shared it on the screen, which is great. Who else will you ask to partner with you to help hold you accountable for taking the actions that you've committed to? Take a few seconds and write down some names. Who will you invite? Who will you invite to be a part of this journey with you? Marcia, or maybe Marcia says, my BFF, love that. Thank you, Aurora. You love the annotation feature. Great. It is a little fun. Mary Jo says she's going to invite her coworkers. Fantastic. Good job, everybody. Well, this just about wraps up our conversation today. I will just leave you with this final thought that the work of mitigating and managing our unconscious bias, it all starts with us as individuals. But collectively, if we each do our part to manage bias, we can all make a positive impact. And I want to thank you all for your commitment to being the change. If you enjoyed this session today, we invite you to also learn more about our other diversity, equity, and inclusion training programs that we have to offer. Beliefs, Blind Spots, and Bias is just one of them, of several that we have to offer. But it's been a pleasure to be a part of today's conversation, and I am super proud of all of the engagement and personal commitments that you all have made. So happy to take any questions that you might have. I think we might have 5 minutes, if I'm not mistaken.
We do have a few minutes, Kelly. So if anyone has questions, please either post in the chat for us or unmute yourself.
Thank you for all the love in the chat. Thank you.
Yes. There's a question from Casey. Do you offer DEI certification or training?
Okay, great. Thank you for the question, Casey. So we offer a course for facilitators, training facilitators on how to lead conversations and facilitate training, maybe internal training around diversity, equity, and inclusion. Yeah.
And they could find that on your website, that information, connect with you?
Yeah, if you connect with us, if you send me a note, Kelly at kellyjohnson.enterprises.com, we can definitely schedule time to talk more.
Don't forget that's Kelly with an EY.
Yes. Unfortunately, I won't get it if that extra E is not there.
Is there anyone else who had a question you want to put in the chat? You're still getting a lot of great positive comments, Kelly.
Thank you. And thank you, everyone. Loved your engagement and all of your courage and vulnerability.
Thank you. Oh, I think you set up some great psychological safety from the very, very beginning for us.
Thank you.
Yes.
What it's about. We can grow together. We just want to do it in a safe way. So.
Okay. Well, I'm not seeing. Oh, let's see. Okay, Jan has a clap. I'm just looking to see if there's anyone else, and I don't see anything else in the chat.
Okay.
No, I don't either.
Okay. Well, Kelly, we have been so fortunate to have you spend this time with us today, and it has been a spectacular presentation and really fostered a lot of terrific conversation and vulnerable conversation for everybody. So thank you for sharing your expertise with us.
Thank you.
Oh, yes, and you're getting some more love as well. What I do want to do is just make sure with Manny and Aurora, do we have any other questions other than reminding you that in December it is our celebration, and we do want to encourage you to sign up and join us for that very last event for the fall series. And we have so enjoyed having each of you and hosting each of you as participants here. I also am putting in the chat, we just love to hear quickly your responses either in the chat or you can unmute, but what did you like most about the event and what could we do to improve for future events? We are planning for the spring with some other items, but what would be helpful for you? We'd love to hear that. Oh, good. We're hearing great moderating, great facilitating. The interactivity and the engagement was great. Super engaging. The interactivity, yes, this was wonderful. It's hard to do this remotely, and so you did a great job of bringing us in, Kelly.
Thank you so much.
Wonderful, wonderful. So thank you so much for everybody bringing this in. Oh, having a higher level of understanding on bias, various ways to interact really helped. Would love to learn more about microaggressions and hear a little bit more about that. So that may be something for us to look at as a future program. Thank you, Aurora. And I think that's all that I'm seeing. If for some reason, I don't know if everybody knows this, but in the chat feature, there are 3 little dots and ellipses, and you can actually save your chat. So anytime you're on Zoom, you can click save, and then you'll receive a little rich text format file at the very end, and that way you could save some of that information as well. And we have more about microaggressions as well. So we'll look into that as a potential topic in the future for us. And Manny, anything? Oh, I'm sorry.
Yeah, Michelle, I was just going to add one last thing, and that is when we meet on December the 17th, we will be sharing with you all our plan for the 2021 partnership. So we really want to encourage you to attend that event. And I will also be providing an update that ICF Global has put together a definition around teen coaching and what that means in the industry. So look forward to that that conversation in December.
Thank you.
Yes, and we'll also be making some announcements on some co-collaboration sessions just like this for next year, where we're going to go over the breadth of a lot of topics from both disciplines as well. So we're planning a lot of things, but we also want your input. We don't want to do all this in isolation. So anybody who has inputs, who have ideas, please reach out to your ICF board, or reach out if you're from ACMP. Reach out to myself or anybody from the ACMP board as well. Let us know what you guys want to learn about. Right? This is for your benefit as well as for ours.
Terrific.
Okay.
Well, thank you. Well, on behalf of ACMP Texas, ICF Austin, and ICF San Antonio, again, we thank you. We wish you some great holidays and coming up this coming week. And hopefully you will find some time to just spend thinking about what your blessings have been this year. I know it's been difficult, but at least having a moment to share that with friends and family in whatever way you're able to do so. We wish you well. And thank you again, Kelly Johnson, for your presentation.
Thank you, everyone. It's been a pleasure. Awesome.
Yes. A round of applause for Dr. Kelly Johnson, please. Awesome presentation.
Kelly Johnson.
Awesome.
Yeah. Thank you.
All right.
Thanks for having me.
Okay. All right, folks. As they say, one Master Chief in the Navy used to say to me, if you have nothing to do, don't do it here. So as much as we would probably all love to stay on here and chat a little bit more, but many of us have to go back to work and do things. But we really appreciate everybody showing up, and we will see you soon on the 17th of December for our happy hour celebration.